So David, we're on your front porch. This is the site where you wrote the first check to Google. Is that correct?
It was an interesting day from my standpoint because Larry and Sergey had come to me after they decided to start a company based on their search engine, and they were concerned about raising the money, and I'd gone out on a limb, so to speak, and said I didn't think raising the money should be a problem.
So what attracted you to their project and to investing?
Search is an important problem, and it's been an important problem forever in computing. And if you look at what many applications do, it's search on a small scale, and they had a solution for search on a very large scale. You know, this was 1998, and at the time, there'd been a number of search companies started that had concluded that search wasn't a real business, so they'd gone off and doing other things, and yet what I was seeing was that there was just this amazing explosion about the amount of information available on the internet, even in 1998, and yet it was getting harder and harder to find this, partly because nobody was focusing on search, but also partly because there was a lot of innovation around compromising search at the time.
Right.
And so many times what showed up when you searched for something wasn't what you were after.
So to date, how much do you think you've invested in startup companies, and how many companies have there been?
Well, let's see, I tried to count this at one stage, and I think that I've invested in about 17 companies in various levels of investment, and you know, from fairly small investments to quite large ones, and I think it's ended up being roughly $50 million at this point over the time I've been doing this, and it's a very skewed distribution. Certainly I've ended up investing a lot of money, much more than I expected in Arista Networks, but they don't need more of my investment at this stage, thank goodness.
Right. How do you think Google is doing now?
I think Google is doing very well. They, I think, have maintained an amazing capability in search, and I must admit that the number of innovations they've come up with in search and made it that much easier, even the instant search, where they're sort of trying to guess what they're searching for as you're typing things in, is a pretty amazing innovation in many ways, but it's really not that hard to do technically if, and that's a big if you can bring enough cycles to bear, you can afford to do this cost effectively.
Did you ever see Larry as a CEO?
No, quite frankly, I didn't. If you'd asked me even a few years back, I would have thought Sergey would be the more obvious CEO than Larry.
Why is that?
Well, Sergey was always came across much more extroverted and more direct in his thoughts about things, whereas Larry came across as more thoughtful, a little more introverted, and so I just never thought that Larry would want the spotlight that a CEO position brings. It's an enormous challenge to grow a company that quickly and not go off into the weeds, so to speak, in various ways, and I think that my understanding is Larry has, really taken the reins and is trying to do, an ongoing kind of review of what's going on inside of Google, because I think they've gone from an era where Google was growing and Google could do no wrong to needing to be a little more mature about this. Let me put it that way.
Do they still come to you for advice?
No, they haven't for some time. I don't know whether I could offer them anything at this stage. I must admit I'd be more inclined to go to them for advice at this stage.